Once a musical hits production, it transforms, no matter how much you think you understand it on the page. In fact, there are things you just can't learn until other creatives have had their hand on the piece and until you've had audience reactions to your piece. For Happy Pleasant Valley, I walked away with 3 big lessons that have truly enhanced how I understand my own writing and writing process. Lesson number 1, your actors will give you invaluable feedback on your characters and character arcs because they are living them. Your actors will let you know if something isn't connecting for them, which is particularly important when you're writing a murder mystery because I might have a bird's eye view of all the different character interactions and what I think is going on, but the actors are the ones who are going through the character arcs linearly. So, for example, setting up the murderer's motivation, I had to rely on the actor who played the murderer, who I will not reveal so you don't get spoilers, to give me feedback as to whether the arc I was setting up for them could make sense. Because even if at the end of the day, it was still a murder mystery with murder mystery logic, I wanted the character to feel like they were based on something true emotionally, true psychologically. Actors will also have insight into their relationships with each other, as well as power dynamics on stage that you just might not have the brain space to keep track of the whole time. And for musicals, they'll also help you refine things like your lead-ins into songs. Does this character feel like they want to sing? And the actor who is playing a singing character can give you that information. Lesson number 2, 3D space changes your story. And this is where I talk about what other creatives like the director, music director, and all the designers will bring to your process. Designers in particular are adding their specialized craft. And there might be storytelling moments that you didn't even know were possible until you saw a costume, a light cue, heard a particular sound. In fact, there's a moment in HPV where I understood everything I needed to know about a particular character because of the costume he was wearing, and therefore I was able to cut a few lines of dialogue and tighten up the show. Understanding the 3-dimensional space of your show also opens your eyes to what is actually important and what might not be important but you thought was. Because this is a murder mystery, for me, details like who lives next door to whom, which door is next to which door, mattered a lot in my brain as I was coming up with the inner logic of the story. But for musical theater, scenic design often has to be very flexible, especially if your musical is jumping around from location to location. So in early scenic design talks, I was counting the number of doors and trying to make logic in my head of which door belonged to whom, and would the audience be tracking who is whose neighbor, who's upstairs, who's downstairs. And I had conversations with my director about this and came up with my own inner logic to make it make sense. But ultimately, once we were in the rehearsal room and working with our mocked up set, spike tape on the floor and all that, it started to become clear to me that the number of doors and tracking doors actually doesn't matter. And that with the right staging and the right design, the audience will just accept that we are in new locations and we're not needing to keep track of all these things. And it is the director who's kind of fusing the practical elements with the more artistic and abstract elements and trying to bring clarity to the live experience of what you've written. Of course, conversations will need to happen and sometimes compromises will need to happen, but that's all part of the collaborative process. But me, because I'm not a director and I'm not wearing a director's hat, or I'm not a designer, I'm not wearing a designer's hat, these are elements of my own show that I'm going to learn once these other creative folks are getting involved. Lesson number 3, audiences will tell you the truth. Sometimes a joke is so hilarious in the rehearsal room, but then once you put it before a live audience, it doesn't get a laugh, or it gets a really mild laugh. Now, I think that's probably happening because the people in the rehearsal room are so familiar with the show and with each other that they can build jokes upon jokes and it starts to become really funny only to them. But we have to remember that for most audiences, they are seeing it for the first time and they might only see it once. So we want to make sure that jokes are landing in the way that we want them to and not just in a way that's funny to us. And this goes for everything in your show, from key expositional moments to emotional payoffs. And that's where audience surveys and feedback comes in. Not because I need to listen to everything everybody's saying, but so I can observe some trends and see whether what I thought was happening in the room actually happened for a majority of the audience. An audience's energy in the room also helps you shape the rhythm of your show. Things like applause, laughter, and even silence become really important data. I mentioned last time how I was lucky enough to have essentially 2 world premiere productions with the ability to make some changes between them. Well, there was one specific pairing of characters that we only lightly hinted at potentially coupling up in the first production, but it always got a reaction from the audience. So in between productions, me and the director decided, let's solidify it. Let's make it even clearer that yes, we are going to lean into these 2 characters becoming a couple. And we did it, and the reaction got even stronger, and that just shows you what that audience feedback can do for making your show feel more solid. Now, when sifting through audience feedback, sometimes it can get really easy to focus on the negatives, but don't forget the positive. Don't forget when they say things like great songs, great music, great acting, great story. Sometimes that positive feedback is that short, but don't forget when people actually take the time to say the positive things. Because while the negative comments might be maybe more detailed and clearly negative, so it'll stick in your head, the trends of positive comments are the things that fuel me to keep going, to know that I'm on the right track. Of course, there are hundreds of lessons more that I could share, but those were the 3 big ones that I felt like bringing up today. If you've watched from the first video to this one, thank you. This was just a quick little series I wanted to do about HPV. Video 1 was about finding the spark. Video 2 was about building the fire. And this video is about what happens when you finally let that fire warm other people. I don't know, some weird analogy like that. This was also my stepping back into being more on YouTube, and I'm hoping to make more content moving forward. If you have questions or thoughts about what that content could be, please feel free to comment below. There will be more videos like these where it's about specific projects that I've worked on and give you a glimpse into my creative journey and process. But there will also be some videos coming up that aren't about a specific project so much as my personal journey as a musical theater writer, as a playwright, as a dramatist. So more good things to come. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.